Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Washington Huskies, a team that was 3-1 overall in the 2020 season. And this team really did not have much of a 2020 season, obviously only playing 4 games. This team was severely impacted by COVID last season. They were supposed to be in the Pac-12 title game, but of course they were taken out due to COVID. So overall for Washington, definitely this was a team that was severely impacted by COVID last season, and they didn't really even have much of a season last year, but this team has got a tremendous amount of potential going into 2021, and why that is what we're going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with Washington's final prediction. We'll be looking at your season trends here today to get things started. Once again, the Huskies were 3-1 overall last season, 2-0 in their first 2 games, then 1-1 in their last 2. So Washington last season, though, overall, I mean, this team did have a couple of the good wins. They beat Arizona 44-27. Good win against Utah, 24-21 as well. Also beat Oregon State. That was their first game of the season, 27-21. And, of course, the last game of the season for this team was against Stanford, where they lost 26-31. So kind of a bad game to end the season on there against Stanford, but this team, it could have been such a better season for Washington if COVID just did not impact this team. I mean, we could have seen Pac-12 title out of this team, and also a good bowl game too, for sure, out of Washington. But is what it is for Washington. This team has definitely got as good of a chance, or even better of a chance in 2021 to put up a better season next year. So this team definitely has got a huge amount of potential, in my opinion, and especially in the Pac-12. I mean, the Pac-12 is wide open. I mean, we're just waiting on a dominant team to take control of the Pac-12, and Washington definitely could be that team next season. I mean, Oregon, of course, is in their division. Oregon's going to be a tough team next year. Of course, they got kind of a weird situation up there right now. They got of course, Anthony Brown, who's going to be your quarterback next season, instead of Tyler Shuck, which that'll be definitely a change-up for Oregon next year. But, I mean, it's still going to be a tough team. But I think Washington definitely has as good of a chance as any team in the Pac-12 North to win their division for sure. As for your returning production next season, you got Dylan Morris coming back. He's going to be a huge impact player. Last season, of course, this team only played four games, so we didn't see a whole lot of action out of a lot of these players. But when Dylan Morris did play, he did show potential. Put up 900 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and also a 61% completion rate. So I would say if he improves this offseason, he could definitely be a top 4 quarterback for sure in the Pac-12 next year. Sean McGrew is coming back. He was your top running back last season, put up just over 240 yards. You also got Kamari Pleasant coming back. So your running back core looks really good, having your top 2 come back for next season. So the backfield will be just fine for Washington. As for the receiving core, of course, you got your tight end, your top receiver there last season, Cade Otton, coming back. Last season, he put up 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he definitely was an impact player for this team last season. Definitely watch out for him next season. He's going to have a huge impact on this team if he can stay healthy. He could definitely be one of the best tight ends in the nation, especially in the Pac-12. I mean, of course, putting up 258 yards in only 4 games is extremely impressive. I mean, if you had a 12-game season, he was on pace to, of course, have over 750 yards of receiving last season, which for a tight end, those stats are insane. So watch out for him next season. Puka Nacua is transferring to BYU, so he will not be with the team next season. He was your top wide receiver. Ty Jones is also transferring away, so the receiving core is losing a couple of key players there. But overall, this team, I mean, that's going to be the biggest question mark, is how this team is going to be in the wideouts position. How is this team going to be at the receiving position? And, I mean, for this Washington team, I mean, you got a great tight end. You've got him for sure. But the receiving core otherwise is pretty, it's not very deep at all. I mean, you got Terrell Bynum coming back, Bynum coming back. He's going to be getting quite a bit of action next season, I can guarantee you. Put up 200 yards last season for the Huskies, and overall, I definitely could see him being an impact player for this team offensively for sure. So watch out for him. As for the offensive line, you return just about everyone on there. You lose 2 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, 2 in the secondary. So defensively, you lose 5, which isn't terribly concerning. Washington definitely has got some depth coming in for the defensive side, so I'm not too worried about the defense there, which, I mean, either way, 5 losses on the defensive side is pretty much right around the average mark of most teams and how many they lose each offseason. So, Washington isn't looking too bad on both sides of the ball. Pretty good returning production for this team, and that brings up the question. Chances of a bowl season in 2021, I'd say, are almost a guarantee for this team. I mean, 6 wins, I'd say, is definitely as low as it can get for Washington next season. This team should definitely go above and beyond 6 wins. I could see this team going anywhere between 9 and 11 wins, to be honest with you, which I mean, even 12 wins is possible for Washington, but because this team, of course, only played 4 games last season, I'm not going to say 12 is going to be the most reasonable answer, but this team definitely has got a big chance, I'd say, to be a big contender in the Pac-12 next season. I think it's going to be Washington and USC to the end of the day being the top contenders in the conference. I mean, Oregon's kind of in the background there. Anthony Brown, if he plays well, Oregon could definitely be a contender. But Washington especially just really strikes me as a team to really watch out for next season. So looking at your schedule, of course, you got Montana there. You got them at home to start off the season. You got Michigan on the road. Michigan's going to be a tough one there in the Big House. That should be a fun matchup for sure, but it could be definitely a very important matchup for both the teams. Arkansas State, you got them coming to town after that. California as well on the 25th. You got Oregon State on the road on the 2nd to start off your October. UCLA to follow them. Arizona on the road. Stanford on the road as well. So October is not a terrible month. November is the month that you got several tough games. You got Oregon, of course, which is more than likely going to determine the overall Pac-12 North champions. So that's basically the division championship, I'd say, right there on November 6th. Arizona State's going to be a good team, too. Watch out for them. I could see them being the main contender against USC in that Pac-12 South. It's kind of funny. You got 4 teams in the Pac-12 next season that could easily win the conference. Washington, Oregon, Arizona State, and then USC being those 4 teams, I do think. I mean, UCLA is going to be a good team as well, but I think, even Colorado could be a contender. But, overall, the Pac-12 is wide open, and I think any team could win that conference next season for sure, especially those 4 teams that I just mentioned. But, yeah, for November, you got Oregon, Arizona State both at home, Colorado on the road. That could be a tougher one. And then Washington State to finish out the season, your rivalry matchup in Seattle. So that being said, let's look at your September here. First 4 games, you got Montana, that's a win. Michigan, I went back and forth on that one a ton. But with it being on the road and a pretty tough environment, Michigan, I'm going to give them the upper hand there. Both teams are pretty much equal in the skill level area. Both teams have got semi-new quarterbacks, and also, Michigan in general is going to be a team to watch out for, I think, in the Big Ten next season. I don't see Michigan being a major contender in the Big Ten, but I could see 8 to 9 wins out of that Michigan team next season. So they'll be a tough team. I think Michigan gets the win there. Arkansas State will be a win. California is going to be close. I like California and Chase Garbers quite a bit, actually, but it's going to be a close one there for sure. But I'm going to still give Washington the win. So 3-1 is going to be a record through the month of September, which is definitely not a bad position to be in. But looking at your October here, you got Oregon State, of course. That'll be a win. I think that's going to be an easier one, as a matter of fact. Then you got UCLA, of course. UCLA could be a sneaky team next season, but I'm going to give it to the Huskies in the end. It's going to be a closer one. I think UCLA hangs around, but Washington does get the win in the end. Arizona, Stanford, both should be easy wins. Stanford could be a sneaky team next season. I think they're actually going to have a tough time making it to a bowl game. That team is kind of an interesting situation right now across the board, of course, with the quarterback situation especially. So Stanford, I don't expect much out of them, so that should be an easy win for the Huskies. Arizona probably will be one of the worst teams in the Pac-12, kind of similar to how they were last season, unless something huge happens for the Wildcats. So 7-1 will be a record through the month of October, which is not a bad position to be in. If you even go 3-1 in the month of November with a win over Oregon, this team should easily win the Pac-12 North title, unless Oregon, of course, a huge surprise team, and they end up going undefeated somehow. But looking at November, Oregon, I'm going to give the win to the Huskies there. It's at home in Seattle for Washington, and also Oregon next season is going to be quite a young team across the board. So I'm going to give it to Washington. I think the Huskies do get the win against Oregon, and that's going to set you up in a very good position to win the Pac-12 North. Arizona State, that is also a sneaky team you want to watch out for, but the good thing is it's also a home game. So I'm going to give it to Washington, but also, Arizona State, that's going to be a close one for sure. Jaden Daniels and the Sun Devils should be definitely a contender in the Pac-12 next season. Then you got Colorado, which is kind of an interesting matchup because the Buffaloes, of course, last season were actually one of the best teams in the Pac-12, which is pretty insane considering Colorado hasn't been a good football team in quite a while. But that team does look pretty good going to next season. If the quarterback position is good for that team, Colorado definitely could be a contender in the Pac-12 next season, definitely a dark horse contender. And with it being on the road, I'm gonna actually give the win to Colorado in that matchup, which that may be a surprise to a few of you guys, but I definitely think next season that for Washington in general, this is a team that even though you take a second loss, I mean, at a 10-2 position with a win over Oregon, you should still win the Pac-12 North. I mean, that means Oregon would have to be 11-1. Their only loss to Washington in order to win the division if you beat Oregon there. So that would be a very tough achievement for Oregon. So I do think Washington does win the division next season. That's my current prediction, is that we're going to see the Huskies in the Pac-12 championship game. But once again, it's going to be very close. Every single win is going to matter. And if you can beat Colorado, which is definitely reasonable, I mean, that puts you in an 11-1 position with your only predicted loss right now to Michigan. So really, once again, for Washington, this is a team that is in pretty good shape going into next season. I've also got an easy win for you over Washington State. I don't really worry about them next season very much. I don't think they're going to be a very good team. That's a team that's going to be pretty young as well going into next season. So that being said, record prediction for Washington will be 10-2 next season. Definitely not a bad prediction at all for this team, and I definitely think Washington should be representing the Pac-12 North in the Pac-12 championship right now. But once again, it's going to be very close to the top between Oregon and Washington. I could easily see either team winning the division. So that being said, that wraps it up for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Huskies. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.